This is the Ink Pray Love podcast. We talk all things health, wealth, and community connection. Let's go. Welcome everybody to the Ink Pray Love podcast. Today we have a good friend of mine, a longtime friend of mine, the amazing, articulate, artful, soulful Adam Roa. He is a poet, he's a businessman, he's a coach, he's a lover, and he's a snowboarder. We're just talking about that. There's so much awesome things here that this man has to offer in terms of creativity, relationships, and love. No further things I can say to show how much I love this guy, because there's just so much actually there. Adam, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, bro. It's such a pleasure. Congratulations on having your own podcast. And I was on your podcast before, so it's like another podcast. It's a rebranded podcast. It's a I almost died and here's the new me podcast. I'm excited to be on this one.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That one was Yogi Lab back in the day, and that was more, it's just a different vibe. Today it's just me, and I was on your podcast of I almost just died with the crazy hospital stories that I can't believe I said in public.
There's some juicy tidbits. I think you're still on some pain meds or something, because you revealed a lot on the Deep Dive podcast.
Way too vulnerable.
People are going to have to go back and listen to the Deep Dive podcast on when you were on, because there are some good golden nuggets in there.
Thanks, buddy. And I'm excited to get some of your golden nuggets. I know there's many. And, what I love about you is your heart, that you're such an open human, and that you've been through, the depths of relationship pain, of life, of just fully living it too. And then depths of the Amazon and deep medicine journeys and all the gold from that. And then coming back into art and creativity and, writing amazing world famous poems. I mean, how many views and hits does that Goldcast one have today?
More than 200 million.
Wow.
Yeah. You Are Who You've Been Looking For is the poem that went viral and really changed kind of the trajectory of everything in my life.
What was that like when that poem hit and it went viral? What started flowing through to you?
Well, I was actually in Bali making my reality show, The Art of Choosing Love. And the poem went viral, and it got 40 million views in the first 48 hours. So, I mean, it went very, very viral, very, very fast. And I started getting hundreds of messages. People who were suicidal, people who had questions, people who were asking for help, people who wanted to say thank you, I love you. And truthfully, I got sick. I don't know if you remember, I went to this retreat with our friend Jules, and I got really sick. I don't get sick, and I broke into fever, flu-like symptoms, and my body broke down. And in hindsight, just realizing the amount of energy that was now coming my direction, my system couldn't capacitate it.
Do you think that I often think about this too, if there's a lot of energy and eyes on you, that can affect your health? Do you think that this is just a common thing a lot of people deal with? How do Hollywood stars actually deal with that?
Well, I think that it's very true. We've all had that experience of being aware that someone's looking at you, and you're like, oh, you look over and you felt it, or you're thinking about someone and they text you, or whatever it is, right? There is on some level, and there's more and more evidence of this scientifically around the quantum, of how everything is connected, and thoughts actually put out electromagnetic fields. And so when you're thinking about someone, that is affecting this quantum field, and we are the receivers of it, because they're thinking about us. And so we have those moments. Now imagine that moment amplified by 40 million people who just saw your video, and that amount of impact that might have on the electromagnetic field that surrounds us, and as electrical beings as we are, the impact that would have on us physically. I think that our systems will adjust to it. I think there are ways in which we can become used to it. I think there's ways that we can actually very literally just develop a body that can handle that. Mm-hmm. But I think for a lot of people who become famous very quickly or have that sort of experience, we see a lot of them sort of implode,
Yeah.
substances and bad behaviors and just different things like that.
Super common that way as well. But I like what you touched on there, is that we can develop a body, to be resilient or resistant to those negative energies. And also in that, I think what came up for me was emotional trauma, like just going through so much emotional, there's abuse, there's just things that we all as a society, everybody has to go through a lot of just emotional shit. And I know you've developed a deep practice in that. And what's it like to then develop a practice into being resilient and resistant to then just those emotions coming your way, internally and externally?
Well, I can't say that I'm an expert at it by any means. I think it's something where we're constantly adjusting and evolving. And to your point, that there are practices that keep me centered may not keep someone else centered. I know that for myself, there has to be a physical component. I have to exercise. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
not exercising, I go crazy. So that's really important for me. And then there's a meditation practice, a mindfulness practice of some kind. And that, by the way, doesn't have to look like sitting still and closing your eyes and doing it that way. It could look like walking. It can look like painting. It can look like whatever allows your mind to become singularly focused, which is the reason why so many meditation practices have like a mantra that you repeat over and over. It's because there's a recognition that our minds wander. That's what they do. And giving yourself a mantra to repeat over and over just brings it into singular focus, or focusing on your breathing or whatever it might be. And so that's why a lot of people find running to be very meditative, just one foot in front of the other, just run, 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 run. And so, I think that for each individual, it's important to go on the journey of figuring out what works for you to get to that space where you feel actually centered within yourself. And as you learn to do that more and more, and the more time you spend being centered in yourself, the more you're going to expand your nervous system's capacity to be with increasing levels of energy, which includes, by the way, money, not just like attention, but money is energy. And so you want more money, you should probably build a body that can hold that money as well.
I love that. I love that. And what do you think those negative emotions, like, just to go back to our podcast on yours, we're talking about, we often woke up feeling sad. I woke up feeling sad most of my life, and as with you, depression was a big thing in both of our lives. And then we were talking about those people who wake up happy, and we're like, fuck those people, man, because we're not even, like, we don't have that at all, but we've had to work towards it, right? How has your ability to learn to regulate your emotions then affected your ability to earn?
It's a really great question. I think that I still struggle, quote unquote, regularly with being someone prone to melancholy. I recognize that there's all these teachers out there that talk about, hey, just spend more time in gratitude and more time in joy, and like train your mind to spot and be in that energy. And I believe there's a lot of truth to that. I've also found that for myself, there's a lot of insidious ways in which I've attached a lot of value to my melancholy. So I make great poetry when I'm sad. I um, I think that there was a part of me, and I believe I've shifted this one. There was a part of me when I was younger that felt like I got more love when I was hurt or sad, or being sad gave me the permission slip to be more vulnerable. Like I could tell my mom that I was having a tough time or ask for help. Whereas if things were going great, I was much more reserved and didn't feel like letting help in. So there's a lot of little ways in which I have learned over the years that I valued my sadness and learned to work with it. As I've gotten older, I have become increasingly more convinced that this is not needed. It's not actually needed. In fact, I believe that it's an outdated program. And what the world needs now more than anything are people who can really exemplify what it means to be joyful and in love with life, not because they haven't been through trauma and wounding, but actually because they have, and they've figured out how to move beyond it and still love life. And I think that that is currently my journey. And I've noticed that, to your point about earning, like people just want to learn from, work with, collaborate with, be friends with happier people. Like I don't want to hire a depressed life coach, you know. I don't, that's not what I'm going for. And I think that when we're in a state of joy, we are more magnetic and more opportunities, and therefore more earning will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that. I remember, when we were in Bali, like the land of life coaches, and then there'd be people that were like coaching life. And I'm like, I wouldn't want your life. Like, don't call me that. Don't coach me on life. I don't want your life. It's super funny. And that sounds judgy. Excuse me to all the.
We all judge. It's okay.
Yeah.
We all judge. It's okay.
I think, okay, this is like a myth about you. I think it's true. Well, I don't know, but that you did a plant medicine journey, and out of that you manifested $1 million client. Is that true?
Yeah, that's an oversimplified version of the story.
Word around town was that. That's what you get out of the telephone game, right? It's like, oh, he just did ayahuasca and then got $1 million client. I'm like, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, it was on the tail end of probably 12 to 16 months of what I would call an initiation. Much of it, I mean, I assume if you're listening to this podcast, to some degree, you have spiritual beliefs, and you believe in energy and some form of greater power. But I have some very deep beliefs and some very deep experiences in those realms. And for me, it was, like I said, about 14, 16 months of initiation around surrender, around money, very specifically. And I was taken through a number of tests, and many of them just spiritual tests. And in one of those final tests, it was an ayahuasca ceremony up on a mountaintop in a teepee. And on the other side of that test and that experience, the medicine said, you have now gone where 99.9% of the population will never be willing to go, and that makes you priceless. It's now $1 million to work with you. And out loud in this teepee, completely silent, by the way, completely pitch black, the medicine says, claim it. And I go, it is now $1 million to work with me. And it's just like no one knows what to say. It's just silent in there. And the shaman says, and may all the resources be used for the greatest good of all, and
awkward medicine journey moment.
Awkward. Like, what is this dude doing?
Yeah.
And then right after that, the medicine said, you're going to have your first $1 million client by the end of the week. Claim it. And out loud, again, into the pitch black, I will have my first $1 million client by the end of the week.
Wow.
And at that point in time, 3 people were shown to me, and they said, one of these 3 people. And 5 days later, one of those people sent me $1 million in one lump sum for a 1-year coaching contract. And so even that is a very oversimplified version of a 14-month journey. And I think that it's interesting how that story kind of gets around, because I've never actually really publicly promoted it. I never became the $1 million coach or branded myself in that way. In a lot of ways, I don't even see myself as a coach really anymore. And so it's interesting to have hit sort of this mountaintop that so many coaches aspire to, and be like, wow, that was an interesting way to get there. for sure.
You hit the mountaintop on a mountaintop in a medicine journey.
Yeah.
Adam Raw, the $1 million coach. There you have it. But that's a hilarious story. Medicine journeys are funny. I want to ask about the $1 million coach thing. Like, I want to ask about that client if I can. But first, just medicine journeys. They're so funny. Like, if you step back and look at what's happening, and can look at the cosmic dance and then take it a little bit lightly. And you're like, okay, this is pretty funny. Like, some of it's extremely deep, super connected, but then also the universe will show you some humor. Like, it has a sense of humor. And I love when that happens, because like there's been moments where like I was sitting in Australia, ayahuasca at Darpan, and I was on my 4th cup. I was going for my 4th cup. I was hero dosing it because I just didn't feel much. I'm a bit of a tank. I can just take, I used to do a lot of drugs, so I guess my body's just like, well, let's go. And so I was on my 3rd cup, and I go up to the shaman, and I just saw this pattern across everything. Like, I was wearing sunglasses with the pattern. I have it tattooed in my armpit now. That's all the room I had left. Anyways, so the shaman's like, "Are you good, Aaron?" And I'm like, "I just love you." I was like, beaming pure love, right? I was just like, this is amazing. But I wanted to go deeper. I wanted to have that like soul shaking, download. I was just like feeling great. It's just like, yeah, the nature's all like, everything's connected. Yay, love and light. But I wanted like the ego death, just going for it. And so I go up for my 4th cup, and this is where my ego came in, and I got slapped. And I go in for my 4th cup, and a few of the other guys in the retreat, and it was kind of like an influencer ayahuasca retreat, a little fluffy, a little vibey, right? And I go up, and the guys are like, "Oh, Aaron, going for the 4th one." They're kind of like, haha, like, a little bit of like broness came out, right? And me, being a douchebag, go, "Yeah." And I did this cocky little thing, like, "Yeah, 4th cup, baby," like that kind of thing. Like, I was amping it, right? I take the 4th cup at the altar. I throw up in my mouth. I just instantly, just right in my mouth. And I look at the shaman. He's looking at me. My mouth is full of puke, hand covering it, and I have to crawl back to my bucket to go throw up, right? So I'm on my hands and knees, like, and everyone's laughing, right? And I just puke it all out before they start laughing once they see that I puked, right? And then they're laughing because I said, "That's karma, huh, guys?" And we all the whole room started laughing because it's like I asked for it, and it humbled me instantly. And I was like, that's hilarious. And then I had some deep downloads after that. I needed to be like that humble, that laughter, that humbleness after that. And then I got some good medicine out of that. Whatever was remaining that actually went inside of me, most of it got vomited up instantly.
Yeah, the medicine definitely, and God, spirit, source has a definite sense of humor, and I think humility is a real key to being in relationship with spirit. I think that for me, part a lot of people, like, to talk about the $1 million client, for example, a lot of people hear that story and their mind sort of goes to like, wow, that was a wonderful gift that you lucked out and like won the ayahuasca lottery or something. And very few people, yeah, very few people actually dissect that event and ask things like, okay, like, what did it take, first of all, for someone to actually think this man is worth paying $1 million? You know what I mean? Like, there was actually someone who did pay that. Very few people know that actually I approached two out of the 3 people, and both of them said yes. And when I was in meditation, after the second person said yes, I was like, I just made $2 million in like 3 days. And in meditation, the message came through was like, no, it's only supposed to be one.
Oh.
And so I actually drafted an email and I revoked my offer to the first person. And I said, I'm really sorry if you've been moving funds around, because that's what they said they needed to do in order to pay me. And I was like, but it's only supposed to be one, and I feel more strongly about this other person, and so I need to remove that offer. Maybe we can work together in the future. And like, to remove the offer of $1 million that someone had said yes to was another part of this story. And I think that the universe will always test your integrity. The universe will always test your own boundaries. And when we think about integrity, think of like chemistry, like the integrity of this can that I'm drinking from. What is the integrity of a glass beaker in chemistry? It's the strength of the vessel, right? And when you crack a glass, you have compromised its integrity, and it can no longer hold what it could hold before. You put it under the same amount of pressure and it'll break. And so when we think about us as vessels for spirit, and we say, okay, what is our integrity? What is the integrity of Adam Roa? The integrity is what I say, and the truth of those values, beliefs, my consciousness, what I hold, how firmly I actually hold that as embodiment. Because if I say I'm always honest, and then I go and tell some white lies, spirit knows.
Mhm.
Spirit's the chemist that's walking up to the thing and seeing the cracks in the integrity of the vessel and going, I can't actually flow enough energy through that. I don't trust the integrity of that vessel. And if we want to be trusted with more, then we have to have the integrity to hold that, because more is more energy. We live in an energetic universe. So you want more money, that's more energy. You want more views on your content, that's more energy on you. You want more opportunities, business partnerships, you want more love in your life from a romantic part. It's all more energy. And the integrity of your vessel determines how much spirit can actually give to you.
Wow. Wow, that's massive. I'm actually really happy that you told me that today. That really like lined up for me a few things that I had, in the ethers and going on in my head this morning, this week, and I was just thinking about something like that, and that just dialed it for me. So thank you. For me personally, that's dope. And I can't believe you turned down a second $1 million client. Holy shit! It's just like, wow,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
wow.
what's interesting is I just said it right now. I said it was, you will have the message that came through was, you'll have your first $1 million client by the end of the week. This is the first time I've ever repeated that and had the word first actually click for me. And now in my body, I'm like, it feels true that I'll probably have another one at some point in time.
Yeah.
And I've never actually had that thought before.
Whoa.
When telling that story. So it's interesting because I just got out of a week-long Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat in Colombia.
Cool.
And so I've done a ton of meditation ever since that retreat ended. For the last 9 days, I've been continuing the meditations every morning. And I'm just sitting in this realm of quantum possibility. And for whatever reason, telling this story, which I've told, I don't know, countless times before of people who've asked, this is the first time that I heard that word first and went, I don't think it's last. So it's as we shift our consciousness, as we become, matches to whatever the next step is, next level, even the words we've heard a million times before, even our own relationship to our past, it all shifts and changes.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly new opportunities and possibilities reveal themselves.
I know who you're emailing after this podcast. Hey, buddy, remember that talk? No, but
yeah, totally.
You know what I love? I just love this so much because this is exactly what I wanted for my listeners. I really wanted them to be able to soak in these little nuggets. And it's just having cool conversations with my friends that are enriching for you and I, but then also these people to get to soak something in it. It changes their perspective a little bit. And then they see their life a little bit different. And I invite all my listeners listen to this stuff. It's cool conversation, just entertaining anyways, but then relate it to your life, relate it to what's going on with you and how does that fit in your life so it can tweak your reality. So through being entertained by us and just hanging out with us, on the airwaves, tweak your life too. I love that. I love that.
Yeah. So you call all your audience tweakers.
Not
tweak
so much.
Your life.
I think that's a different thing. Tweaker.
Got it.
It's not
very on brand. Very on brand.
Free meth. It's not.
No, it's the same reason I started my podcast, The Deep Dive, man, was just because I realized that I was having these types of dope conversations with so many of my friends. Said, let me just put a camera and a microphone on it and just have these conversations and see where it goes. And I think it's important. I think it's important for people to hear these sorts of stories and hear the way that we communicate, because we're not communicating any different than how we communicate when we're in person or on the phone or whatever. This is just another conversation between you and I.
Yeah, exactly. What was it like having the $1 million client? What was the pressure like to perform? Because that's quite a bit every session, right? What was the volume of of sessions. And
I mean,
what
it
were
was
those?
it was a year commitment, and there was in person like immersions that were involved. And what I can say is that it was a very challenging experience. It was definitely a very
Mhm.
challenging experience, and um, I I I wouldn't do it again if knowing it, because for me, um, the like I've thought a lot about coaching. I've thought a lot about coaching over the years. I took on my first like personal development coaching client in 2013. So I've been in coaching for a decade now. And um, I've realized more and more that I'm I'm more interested in helping someone create than helping someone heal,
Mhm.
because I believe that the process of creation is healing. And so when I first started coaching, I focused a lot on helping people heal their traumas. I focused a lot on helping people navigate really difficult, um, situations, whether divorce or health related or whatever, because that was my journey. I was going through that myself, and most coaches know that you end up coaching people who are only like one or two steps behind where you've walked yourself.
Mhm.
And I recognize that over time, if we're constantly focused on what is the next thing to heal, what is the next thing to um, difficult wound that we can process, or trauma we can resolve, or like purge into a bucket, our focus suddenly becomes staying in the shit. And it doesn't matter how much you heal, how much you work through. If you are looking and searching in the shit, you're going to stay in the shit. And at some point in time, I recognize that if we're actually on the playground of life, if we're in the creation as an expression of the creator, of creation itself, if we are out there creating and expressing and allowing our life force energy of creativity to flow through us, and we're on the playground of life, all of your shit will still come to the surface, because it's all the stuff that's telling you you're not worthy of all that play, you're not capable or talented enough to express, your voice is not worthy of being heard, et cetera, et cetera. All of that still arises to the surface, but when you're done working through it, you're on the playground. You're on the playground, and most of the time you have something beautiful to show from that journey you just took.
Yeah.
And so my perspective on coaching shifted a lot. And now the way I approach things is so different that I don't know even how I would approach that same contract as before, or that same thing. I think that it would be entirely different. And so many times I wonder what would be possible if I took this new awareness back then and redid it. Like, what would $1 million contract look today for
Mhm.
someone, which has so much more play and opportunity and possibility woven into it, and self-expression, and that gets me excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love what you said about that. Actually, creativity is healing, because I really think the same way, because it did heal me. I mean, when you were starting coaching in 2013, I was selling large amounts of drugs. That was exactly like that age where I was deep in the dope game. And then, not living out my dharma, I got deep into addiction. You're just around drugs all the time. You're not happy about what you're doing. It's easy to get your hand in the cookie jar. And then shifting to move to Bali to start, healing myself, it was hard at the start, really. Like, it was really difficult trying to get out and get clean, and because I didn't really have like anything else actually creating. It was kind of just like trying to figure it out, and like rehab or NA would not work for me because I wasn't like doing a thing after, and I'm a doer. And when I started actually then having projects like building the first little business, and then the tattoo shop, and the bigger tattoo shop that we met at, and all that, then actually it was so much easier to be like handle my demons because I was in the game playing and doing rather than just like back and like looking at it and trying to like, therapy it out. Therapy's great, but like I need to build something and then I'll heal in the process, just like you said. And I really believe in that if we have a mission that we're doing something, we're building something we care about, it we have something at the end of it to be proud of yourself. And often we just need that confidence in our creativity, like we did a thing. But what would you tell people that are super low in their confidence? They're just like, I don't even think I can pull it off, and they don't even start.
Well, I think that the pieces that are necessary for someone to really overcome those demons are more than just willpower. Mm-hmm. Like willpower is oversimplified. It really is, because someone's willpower to make a decision is factoring in a lot of other pieces. For example, do I believe I have friends who believe in me and support me? Do I believe that I have the financial resources to accomplish the thing that I want to accomplish? Do I believe that do I even see a path out? These all will contribute to someone's quote unquote willpower. You will need, because willpower, what is that? That's a quantificate. That's a word that we're using to quantify a certain amount of energy, internal energy put towards something, right? And so if I know that I have my friend Aaron behind me, supporting me to break my patterns of addiction, who's calling me up, if I know that I have the resources to go to a really great rehab center, if I know that I have a plan, like you said, to start this business that I want to focus on and that's motivating me, or I just had a kid and so I have that motivation, or whatever it is, all of that is requiring less energy from me because it's supplementing my energy internally. Mm-hmm. You calling me up every day to check on how I'm doing is supplementing. It's giving me energy that I don't have to come up with on my own if I'm completely isolated and have no friend support. Mm. And so I think that when we look at someone who really is struggling to take that next step to change their life, when I'm coaching or leading a group program or whatever, I'm looking at all the various aspects of ways that they can supplement energy to make it as easy as possible on them. And I think oftentimes in personal development, people start to feel like shit because you have all these coaches that are saying it's just a matter of choosing it. You create your reality, so you got to make the choices, without actually breaking it down and be like, okay, let's make that easier for you to make that choice. Mm-hmm. Let's figure that out. Let's take a look at, okay, who are the people in your lives? You don't have people in your life that can really support you? Amazing. What are some communities that you can get involved in? What coach can you hire? That's the first step. I didn't have that. When I started on my spiritual journey, I had one person in my life who I could really rely on, and that was the woman I was dating. And outside of that, I had no spiritual friends. I didn't have that community. So I had a spiritual awakening through ayahuasca in 2013. And what did I do? I hired a coach. That's what I did. I basically said, you know what? I need like a spiritual escort. I got to hire I got to hire someone to give me the feelings that I need to help me move forward. That's great. Yeah. Amazing. That was one of the single most transformational things that I ever did for myself was hiring someone. And I think that when you start to recognize that what you want to do in your life is going to require a certain amount of energy, and you are going to need to source that energy internally, but you can also source that energy externally from various pieces and places. When you start to see it from that more macro view, you can make it a lot easier on yourself. And sometimes when you're dealing with something like addiction, if you think that you are just going to have to personally on your own get enough energy to overcome all of those addictive patterns and all of it entirely self-sourced on your own, that's a really daunting task. And that can cause a lot of people not even to take the first steps necessary.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that runs with addiction, heartbreak, getting over trauma, starting a business, getting over just whatever. It's so much better to enroll tribe community coaches, mentors. Like, you got it. No one's self-made. No one. Even the ideas you get, came from something else. Even reading books, like, those are your tribe. You can have tribe that are dead people that you never have access to. I love that shit. And so, like, we need that. Like, we need that stuff. We can't do it alone, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and then a place to go, like, where are we going, who's coming with me? I know you heard that whole thing, and that's a big thing. I love that. That's a big thing for men, right? And women. Where are we going, who's coming with me? And don't do it alone, because it's super hard. um, I've seen that a lot. And I think just getting places and finding tribes. So you didn't have any spiritual friends. I didn't either. I mean, all my friends were drug dealers. There wasn't any spiritual friends out here. And then, who was in my corner was Julia Roberts. I saw Eat, Pray, Love. And I was just like, oh shit, Bali looks cool. I don't even know where it is. I had to Google it. And then I could, show up and go there. And then I got my eyes open to a whole bunch of other stuff that was super cool. And it sounds like travel has been a big part of your journey as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Travel is, I think, and not just bougie ass travel.
No,
You know what I mean?
no.
Like, you got to travel in a way where you get to experience real culture and experience differences, because I think that, I stayed in $6 a night huts in India, traveling by myself through India, for example. And like, when you are traveling in that way and you're getting to talk to people about the caste system. I got to hear about the caste system in India from someone in it
Yeah.
who was amazing, an amazing human, who was telling me how they weren't allowed to start their own business in India. They weren't actually allowed. And I said, well, what would happen if you started your own hotel, or little hostel or something? And they said they would come, like, the community would come and burn it down.
Wow.
And it made me think about, wait, how does my view of life change and the message that I'm delivering to people change when I'm aware that I'm telling people you can do anything you want, right? And then there's this person who's like, if I tried to start a business here, literally my friends, my relatives would come and burn it down because of the caste, this imaginary thing that is been assigned to this person.
Mm-hmm.
And when I volunteered in a refugee camp in Greece that had mainly Afghani and Syrian refugees, and getting to hear from these people. So at the time, Greece had, and I think still does, a massively high unemployment rate. Like, it was like 70 something percent unemployment rate.
Whoa.
And so this young man was there in this refugee camp with his younger brother, incredibly smart. And he was basically being told that they were going to let him stay in Greece. So he was going to get out of the refugee camp. But he's like, what are the chances of a refugee, not even a local here, getting an actual job in a place with such a high unemployment rate? And if I can't get a job, what am I supposed to do here? I'm going to be homeless here. I can't go back because I ran, and I'm going to get killed if I go back to my country. And he's like, now I have the option of staying here and dealing with that unemployment thing, or fleeing, like running away and trying to smuggle himself into like Germany, where if he could get in, there's more likelihood that he could find. And so, like, he told me this story, and he says, what would you do if you were me?
Damn.
And I went, I'm actually speechless. I don't have an answer for this human being. And it really opened my eyes to some of what I've even spoken to. I don't know if the way that I'm speaking comes across in any way as kind of cynical at all. I don't think it does, but
No.
I think that there's a nuance to the way that we talk about life and living life, and as coaches and influencers and all of these things where we put out messages. There was a time in my life where I oversimplified things by buying into the, like, you create your reality, it's willpower and it's choice and it's all of these things. And when I lived life a little bit more deeply, to your point, traveling being such a
Mhm.
huge part of it, it opened me up to nuance. And I think that what I want to say here is that it's really important. I still believe we create our reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
I believe that you will, it will come down to a choice and it will come down to your willpower. And those are nuanced things. My point about willpower is helping you see ways that you can supplement willpower, where it's not just in your mind that you just have to make a choice. And if you're still addicted to drugs, it's because you're not strong enough. There's ways in which that is being oversimplified, and it's just creating a negative spiral and a shame spiral. And so I think that my message to everyone as we've been diving into this is like, life is so nuanced, and the more that you can understand the nuances of what goes into all of this, the more that you're actually able to truly support yourself in creating the life that you want to lead, and able to avoid these paths of pitfalls and traps that can happen when we oversimplify things. And travel has been a huge contributor to my ability to find nuance, because it's opened my mind to possibilities and difficulties that I had no experience with previously.
Mm-hmm. On that line, where do you think the line between free will and choice, and then, totally out of our control and situational fucking craziness or awesome shit, and karma and dharma and that kind of lies? Where do you think that crazy cosmic dance is?
That's a
Deep
really
question.
great, bro. That's a really great question. I think I did an episode of the Year Too Much podcast
Mm-hmm.
about free will versus destiny,
Mm-hmm.
because I've wavered back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
I've wavered back and forth. There was a point in time where I believed that we create absolutely everything. And it's really a matter of, like, we have infinite realities, and just your internal frequency determines which one you're living at any given moment. And when we shift our like, if we went into meditation right now and we elevated our heart coherence and everything, we would shift the timeline that we're on, and we'd be living in a different reality based off of that. And then I went far in the other direction of believing, wait, if time, like, is not this, like, if there's something beyond time, is time is just the fourth dimension, is beyond time, then everything already has happened, right? It already just is, which means that the moment that you're born, that reality, your whole life it already happened, right? So it can't be changed. We're just kind of, actually, we're a movie, we're playing itself out, and we're just watching the movie of our life, because how could we possibly change it if it's already done and it's already been lived already at the moment of our birth? And I started to believe that, okay, the roller coaster track is laid out based off of the moment you're born and the location, like astrologically. So
Mm-hmm.
if you were born 5 centimeters to the right, it would be slightly different. If you were born 50 centimeters to the right, it'd be more different, etc. Same versus the seconds in the day that you were born differently. And the rest is just playing itself out. And so just enjoy the ride. And now I'm not sure, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. I don't know where I fall on that. I think that it doesn't actually matter, is the truth of it. I think that the real question to be asking is, which belief is more supportive to you? Do you believe that if this is all destiny and you can't screw it up, does that create a freedom in your system to just, like, go and live full out because you can't screw it up? Or believing that you create everything in every single moment, does that motivate you to shift into a positive energy as often as possible? And therefore, that's more supportive to the life you want to lead. I think whichever one is more supportive is the one that you should adopt.
That makes totally sense. It's kind of like, which diet's good for you. It's like, well, which one do you operate better with? What are you healthier with? So which
Right.
mindset is healthier for you? Even if you're extremely religious, but that's making you a good person, and you're not doing some Westboro Baptist church shit, okay, like, that's good for you then, but if it's
But
bad for
don't
good.
you think that we have to change our definition of, like, good then? Like for
True,
you,
true,
when we
true.
say, like for you, I'm like, okay, which diet is good for you?
Hmm.
For one person, the diet that's good for them is the diet that helps them gain a bunch of weight,
Yeah,
right? So they
yeah,
can get, like, I want to put on some weight over the next few months, right?
yeah,
That's what I like. So that diet, but that diet's different than someone who wants to no, I just want good digestion. Because
yeah,
you got a ton of these bodybuilders that are inputting a bunch of whey protein and then, shitting their brains out all day long.
yeah.
So like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Totally.
which when we look at, there are people who think that the purpose of life is making as much money as they possibly can while they're here,
Hmm.
and their belief systems about life are going to reflect, because they're going to pick the one most supportive to that version of what is winning.
Hmm.
I sent out my newsletter earlier today, and it was looking at, oh no, it wasn't my newsletter. I think it was on my Instagram. It was talking about what is winning. Our definition of winning, like to win, because we all want to win. Your definition of winning is going to be the thing that then you reverse engineer all of your beliefs off of,
Mm.
And so what do you think is winning? What does Aaron think? What is winning?
I think really winning for me right now is I want to impact my city. I want to come back to Vancouver and be like making this place a better place just by being me, and everybody that actually interacts with me is happier I'm around, and to be building my career, my sphere, my ability to help people. And when I'm like aligned to that, like it's not just having fancy shit, but it's actually doing dope shit with people I love and then inspiring people. The more I can do that and I'm seeing it work, that feels really good to me. I'm like, okay, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. My dharmic path, is to give, connect, and inspire. I want to do that. I want to keep doing that. And
Mm-hmm.
so that feels winning to me. But when it comes with chaos and friction, it's like that's not in alignment. I can tell that's not winning the game. You're muscling it. You're trying to force it to happen. And some good things can happen out of that, but it can come with this like sticky residue. And so if things are in flow and easy, and I can see that, okay, I can just see that was supposed to happen. Like coming back to Vancouver and all this awesome shit happened. I'm like, oh, that was clearly why I had the accident, why I came back here just to visit, why it sucked me back in, why now it's all these awesome things happening. It was like, okay, that was the path. That was supposed to happen. That was the destiny. Okay. I wish it was less a pain. I wish the truck wasn't involved in the destiny. But all right, let's roll with it,
Yeah.
right? What about you?
And so when you say it's like you want to help people, in what way do you want to help people?
I feel like if I can help them see a different perspective, that they're able to then push whatever they're pushing through. I feel like what we've been through is our medicine to serve other people. So my medicine is gonna be persevering through crazy shit. And then being happy and being and still laughing, still being able to you know
So
smile through.
what's the difference? How do you know when, because you just said like all of the difficulties of moving through stuff and it's not in flow, right? So where's the line between what's in flow and therefore is dharmically aligned versus perseverance,
Mm.
which is needed when things don't feel like they're in flow? You need to persevere through for difficult times. What's the
Like
difference between those?
getting hit by a truck. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very clear. Absolutely. And I think you're totally right where there's some parts that just feel like I'm forcing it. It's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And then other parts that are just like, this is what you're supposed to persevere through. This is your path to walk through. You're meant to have to learn how to walk again so you could
And so
appreciate.
when you encounter a wall like that and a
Yeah.
difficulty, how do you decipher when it's something that you're meant to persevere through and when it's the universe telling you it's not in flow?
I feel like intuition. It's a big intuitive thing. Even
Mhm.
when I got hit by the truck and I was in the ambulance, I accepted it. I remember telling you that. I was just like, all right, this is what's supposed to happen. Okay. And I trusted it. It wasn't like, this is a setback and this is not in flow for me right now. It wasn't like that. It was just like, okay, I get it. But then I went to this nightclub on Saturday night for like 5 minutes. It was my friend's birthday. I promised I'd show up, and I went in there, and just my energy contracted when I was in there. I was just like, this isn't in flow for me. And tomorrow morning I'm going to the temple or Sikh temple every Sunday now, and I'm learning about Sikhism in English. And my Punjabi sucks, right? And I just want to learn more about my culture. So I'm just going and learning in English. And I know if I get lit tonight, I'm not going to go to that. Like there's just, that's not. So I was like, that flows better. When I think about it, that seems like a better path. And when I think about being here, even though my friend was buying the bottles, it was like a $2,500 minimum buy for this table. And he's just like, got it. And I'm just like, yeah, still, no. Like I still, that doesn't, just, no, that's not enough. I don't care. I want to go and flow this way. And I was walking home in the rain and I was so happy. I was just like alone, walking home in the rain. It was a couple blocks from my new place. I was just like, that was a good decision. Like I felt in flow, like it just felt the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so like there's so many pieces to that story, even that when people listen to that, my encouragement is like people look at and decipher the definitions of how you're describing it. So for example, you use the word like, this is a better decision. Better means what actually? What are the criteria by which something can be said to be better or not based on your definition, right? When you said, okay, this is a good decision. Okay, what is it that makes it a good decision? What are those criteria? And all of those, when you say it's intuition, it's like, okay, so what is the difference? How do you actually decipher what is intuition? All of those are bringing it back to what I'm talking about nuance. It's all in the nuance. And I think that, when I'm supporting people, I'm helping them identify more of the nuance, because when it's like optimizing all of the pieces of a CPU processor, like each little piece you optimize leads to an overall cumulative net benefit in the direction that you want to go. And I think where people can get lost sometimes is they hear all of these stories. They hear these things like, I'm following my intuition, and I'm finding out I'm going to be in flow. And then there's like also, persevere, strive and grind. Like you're going to have to put in the work. You're going to have to just like get that willpower and that strength to overcome adversity. Those are, everything that was just said is true. And being able to decipher what that means for each individual is going to be based off of their goals, what they are, and also the way that spirit communicates with them. The way that your intuition feels in your body is actually different than how it feels in other people's bodies. Yeah. So is someone more kinesthetic? Is someone more auditory? Is someone, like all of those sorts of things can happen. And when we are on this journey together, even the idea of helping people, inspiring people, making people's lives better, like what does that mean? If more people take the time to really reverse engineer that, I think that we fall into more of a laser focus in our lives. When I know what it means to make someone's life better, I become more laser focused on doing that thing. And what someone's life looking better might look like, in my opinion, might be different than yours, which is great, because now you're supporting some people in a certain way that's different than me supporting people in my way. And we can find our like perfect fit in this puzzle, this tapestry of life with so many other humans. And so ultimately for me, and I don't know if I told you this, I took January completely off. And I didn't have any clients. I didn't have a mastermind running. I didn't have my online community. Like literally from a business perspective, just took it off, which is the first time I've done that in maybe 7 years. Wow. Normally I always have something running. And as I was sitting, because it's now we're recording this February 7th. So like it's been 5 weeks of not launching anything and not offering anything. And it's been really confronting, but it's also been valuable for me to sit with a lot of these same questions that I'm bringing to this. Is like, okay, who do I want to help? What do I actually believe? It's very easy for me to just repeat a lot of the same stuff that I've been saying or that other people are saying or whatever. But like, what's really underneath that for me?
Mm-hmm.
What would fill me up? What would make me happy? And then so my encouragement is for everyone to do that. You know, you might not have to take all of your time off of everything for 5 weeks to figure that out, but I think it's an important inquiry for all of us.
It's really interesting because it kind of sounds like, you know, what's a yes for you today isn't a yes for you later. What's true for you today isn't true for you later. Who do you want to serve today? You know, like we're pretty fluid in what's happening with us right now and what do we want to do in life, and also what's true, like what's truth. Because it would be like, well, only one client, $1 million client, and then now today you're like, wait a minute, like yeah, the first $1 million client, and then with that nuance, we like shift that into there's more possibilities now. What was available then and seemed like that's the thing is now a different thing. And of course, that was like us always. At one point in my life, like I said, I was like 24 years old, and I'm going to be a career, like I'm going to be an organized crime till the day I die. I was like, that's like how I was. I'm going to sell drugs until I die. Like I was just like, what the fuck, right? It was so that was what I thought was going to be my life, and now that couldn't be even furthest possible thing from true. How much we shift, you know. And so many people like listening, it's like, yeah, what you went through or what going through right now isn't forever. The nature of the universe is impermanence, anicca, you know. That's gonna be the thing. So like that's like a great reminder for me today. It was like, well, whatever I'm doing right now isn't gonna be that later, but do this right now the best, right?
Yeah. Well said. I think ultimately the more we bring of ourselves to each and every moment, the more we receive feedback from the universe in direct proportion to that amount we bring. Like if we're only bringing a tiny fraction of ourselves because we're so insecure and we're holding back and we're like worried about taking the risk or whatever that is, and we bring that tiny bit forward, the world around us is only able to alchemize and provide feedback on that 20%. But if we bring all of us to each and every moment and we show up fully and this is me right now, no matter if I'm happy, sad, if I have it figured out, if I don't, whatever, I show up so fully in each and every moment, the universe gets to provide feedback on 100% of me. And that feedback will provide me with more data. It'll provide me with more energy that I can then utilize to make my next moves and my next moves and my next moves. And we will get so much more out of life as a result of that, because we are bringing all of us to each and every moment. And I think that is a goal that I have. It's a goal that I share openly, and also that I see and respect in other humans like yourself, who's like, yo, this is all of me. I'm authentic. I'm truthful, and you may not like it, but this is me. And I think the more people doing that, the better.
I really like that. But you said something that really struck a chord with me there was like, you know, the data that comes back, the feedback, and like, how do you interpret the feedback that the universe gives you and then use it?
I feel like that's everything.
Yeah.
I actually think that's everything. It's literally like what we're talking about coaching. What is a coach? A coach is someone who can spot patterns in your life that you might not be able to spot. Like that's a coach. That's it. Like I coach people. Doesn't matter if it's for $1 or $1 million. Like I'm hired because they believe I can see things in their life, patterns that they aren't able to see on their own. Amazing. So how do we develop our ability to pattern recognize at a deeper level? You want to be a better coach, you got to be able to see more patterns. You want to be able to help more people, you got to be able to see more patterns. You want to be able to shift your life from where it is now, you need to be able to see patterns that you couldn't see before. And so the ability to shift the amount of patterns that we can see is going to be based off our ability to interpret and embody and integrate new data points. That's primarily what it is. And so listening to a podcast like this is going to open up people, be like, wow, I've never thought of it that way. Well, what just happened is it's not just a new data point that just developed. When you change your your way of thinking, you didn't just add new data points. You actually developed an entirely new way of processing information, which is an exponential increase on what you can do with the old data points. To your point, when I said the word first and I interpret it differently, wow, that's actually a different way of seeing the same data point. Yep. It's like you see the number 3, you know, numbers 1 through 9. Imagine you know addition and subtraction, but you just learned multiplication. All of those numbers have entirely new meaning because you just learned multiplication. So I encourage people to shift the way they think about things, because that will have the greatest, most exponential impact on the possibilities and patterns one can recognize. And then I encourage people to just also take in more data. And so when you're living with life in general, if what you're experiencing is all data, this conversation is just data for me. Okay, how did that conversation go? That's good data for how I may have presented the information or the energy I might have been in at the time or whatever. And then learning from you, reading a book like I was doing right before this, etc. I'm learning, I'm shifting the way in which I interpret data, and that is its own journey. And obviously people listening to this podcast right now are on as well. And so those are 2 ways. And then ultimately we have to make different decisions, right? Like if you're making the same decisions, nothing's going to stick. You will not change the way you see the world.
Wow. Mic drop. I love that. Like, I love that. That is so valuable just for people to see that if we're able to interpret data slightly differently, see it from a new perspective, we have a whole new lens. Like just like what camera lens, like you just got a new lens. You see wildly, more clear picture there. And all we want to keep doing is having a better lens, having a wider lens, being able to see more and deeper, higher resolution. Just like when we first met back in Bali, I was just finishing a pretty intense breakup. And I might have told you about it at that time. And it was that I thought I was going to get married. I bought a diamond. This was like it for me, I thought. And it was massive. It was a colossal, intense breakup. And it was a really sticky one. It got really ugly, right? And, as sometimes it can do. And it was a fucking nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. And then now when I look back at it with all the data that I received since then and about that and looking deeper into myself, I was just like, thank God that happened. Thank God that happened. It gave me such a massive lens on relationships and life and love and reading people. It was a big one. And so, that data that came in, and some of the lens changes hurt, but that one was, was massive for me to go deeper on it. And I feel like you would totally get that going through, a medicine journey, getting a new lens, and then, having a breakup with your partner over, how many years were you in that relationship? And then it sent you down this massive trajectory. It's crazy that new data that comes in, how that can shift our whole world, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the more times that we have of receiving a new lens that completely transforms everything, the more times that we have those experiences, the less we become attached to the current lens. I've had enough experiences of thinking I knew, and then some new data comes in, and I went, I never saw that coming about life, about myself, about relationship, whatever, that I literally am at the point where I'm like, I'm not 100% on anything. Everything I've just shared right now, take it with a grain of salt. Is it supportive to you?
Yeah.
If it's supportive to you, take it, apply it until it's no longer supportive. Yeah. And if it gets to a point where it's no longer supportive, change your lens. And ultimately that's at the heart of this, because if you can learn to love life, if you can be happy, then you will, generally speaking, inspire others to do the same. I don't know too many people who are truly happy that aren't helping other people in some way, shape, or form. Selfish people are generally unhappy people. And I think that if I can help people become happier, that's why, like, speaking to breakups, I've had my fill of really difficult, challenging breakups. And that's why I created the Art of Breaking Up, which is my online, it's a video course for 10 weeks, really helping people through breakups, because breakups were my journey. Do I want to be going through breakups in the future? Hopefully not. I'd like to be in the relationship where I'm like, this is good.
Yeah.
I'm set now. I found my queen. I'm ready. No more breakups. And at the same time, like that I've had enough experiences of going, wow, I never thought this would happen and it happened, to go, anything's possible. That for me is a supportive belief system right now. It allows me to be in difficult situations and go, this is going to change. It allows me to be in situations where I'm thriving and go, I don't have to get too attached to this success right now. Whatever it is, that belief currently helps me. And I think that everyone listening to this, that's my encouragement, is find the belief systems that can support you on getting to the next chapter of your life, the next place you want to be. And you'll realize through feedback, if you're open, honest, and really paying attention, you'll recognize when those beliefs are no longer supporting you. And at that point in time, it's really valuable for you to find some new ones.
I love it. I love it. And I like that you can support people through breakups. I mean, that was a big thing in your life, and then now being able to support it circles back to, you know, what we've been through in our life will be our medicine to serve others. And I think that's inspiring for a lot of people listening. Will be aspiring coaches, will be full-fledged coaches, but yeah, what we've been through is what we can share to help, and you're definitely doing that. Send me the link, we'll put it in the show notes so we can help people with that. And I'm curious, before we go, which book were you reading before you jumped on?
It's funny. I just started this morning. I just picked it up. It's the 48 Laws of Power.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because I actually this is what I wrote in my newsletter this morning, was I read the first chapter and I got super triggered by the book, because the book basically says that power is accumulated through deceit and indirection and manipulation, and that's how power has been gained throughout all of time, basically. And it uses all these historical examples and these laws that are important to understand. Like, for example, essentially one of the laws is never shine brighter than your superiors. Like,
wow,
that's the first law in there.
What?
It's literally the first law, which is understanding that people in power, if you outshine them, you are not going to accumulate power. That is going to trigger them and whatever. And so you need to always make the people with more power feel more powerful. And so it's this really and it uses all of these, it goes back to like Roman times and ancient times, and it uses all these examples. And it was really triggering to me. It's really triggering to me. And so anyway, I've wrote about that in my newsletter this morning, but I think that that's the book that I'm currently reading, but not reading it from a place of like, I haven't decided. I literally just started it this morning. I'm not sure how I feel about it, although I'm learning even the things that we don't like, we can learn so much from. And I'm asking myself the question, okay, why is this triggering to me? Okay, even though it's triggering to me, is it any less true? Is it triggering because I actually believe it's true and I'm not willing to do these things? Is that why? What is actually the trigger? And so like, I'm using that as feedback based on how I feel to adjust for myself. And then also look at, okay, I've always been an innovator. I've always been someone who believes in doing things a little differently. So can I look at what this person is saying are these laws of power, and is there another alternative? Because we can't change a system if we don't understand it. So like, okay, maybe this is true. Maybe this is the way that people have gotten power. If I understand the laws, how could it be done differently? So that's where I'm currently at with it.
I love it. I love it. That's so funny and so interesting. I remember reading that too, and I was like, nah. Like, I remember that. I remember reading that and being like, no. But then I was like, but that's how things have run, you know, way back Roman times. Every times you get murked if you're like, you know, overshining some people, they're like threat and they kill you, or they'll nail you to a cross or something. You know, it's historically
people
true.
People are always gunning for you. If you're in a position of power, people are always gunning for you, right? Like that's been a truth. Is it going to continue to be a truth? I don't know. I hope not, but it is the way that it has been done. And unless we're willing to learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then we got to learn from it. We got to switch the lens, look at that, and be like, that hasn't been working so much. We keep murdering each other. When is the time that we evolve into the future space aliens from other dimensions that we are destined to be and become those little gray guys because our brains are super big because we learned how to work together and not murder each other over resources, but share them. And then we can have less big bodies because we don't need to throw axes at each other and we have big brains. I don't know.
You just want to be a giant, big-headed alien, huh?
Hell yeah.
Got
I've
it.
always had a slightly small head for my body, so I'd like that to, to even out. Anyways, bro, thank you so much for today. I had so much fun talking to you, and I hope everybody had fun listening to it. It's always a pleasure getting to jam and hang out, and I hope we get to have you here in Vancouver to do an event together, and if not, I'll see you very soon. That's the offering at the moment. Is there anything else for the breakup course? Is there anything else you'd like to share with people that they could find with you and connect to you before you go?
Yeah, man. I thank you for having me. It's been great to just jam out with you. And I didn't do any interviews in the month of January at all. So again, this has just been interesting to be like, ooh, I feel like a different energy in me actually when I'm speaking. So it's just cool feedback for myself.
Cool.
And yeah, for anyone who's resonated, I got a lot of different things. If you're going through a breakup, you can go to my website, adamroa.com, adamroa.com. And there's going to be a link to my course. It's 10 weeks. It is everything that I learned and applied to my own life to help me through some very difficult breakups, all put into one place, stuff I wish I knew back then. And then, if you're interested in my podcast, The Deep Dive with Adam Roa and You're Too Much with Adam and Taylor. And then I have all kinds of other things, Instagram, YouTube, a newsletter, a text message community, all those places. So if you follow me, you can find me in all the ways that you want to.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, brother. It's always a pleasure to connect to you.
Yeah, much love, man.
Peace.